Hello, everybody, and welcome or welcome back to the second shelf and to the tops and flops of February. It's been a rough week, I can tell you, before we get into the tops and flops. If you've never been to Cologne during Carnival, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but crazy people everywhere. It starts on Thursday and it goes all the way through until next week, highlights yesterday and Monday, and then finally it's over next week, Wednesday. And I'm not a carnival person, never have been. I'm from the south of Germany. We also celebrate carnival, but we call it Fasnacht, and it's completely different. It's more about, getting rid of winter and burning winter sort of effigy. But this, no. And the best thing to do is, especially on Saturday and on Monday, just to barricade yourself at home and don't leave the house. But then you also have to deal with neighbors all the way across the street who just, very drunkenly celebrate Carnival until 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's been a rough couple of days, I can tell you. But still, tops and flops. And I'm saying this about Carnival not to, ask you to pity me, but because it's still today, the 27th, and tomorrow, the 28th, left in the month. But I don't think I will finish another book. And if I do, which is highly unlikely, and if this book is fantastic or really, really, really bad, which is also highly unlikely, I will just cheat in March and put the book in the tops and flops of March. Anyway, let's get into the books. And as always, we start with the tops. And within the tops, as always, we start with the book that surprised me the most. And if you had been following along what I've been reading, my recent reads on Sunday, you're probably not that surprised because I normally don't read YA. It's just not my thing. But I read this one. Darcie Little Badger, A Snake Falls to Earth, published in 2021. I would have never picked up this book if it hadn't been for the book cougars. Chris and Emily, two middle-aged women on the hunt for a good read, or a good book, I think they say. And each quarter they pick a group read. And this was the pick for the first quarter. There will be a Zoom chat tonight. For me tonight, rather early in the morning, 1 a.m. It will depend a little bit how noisy the neighbors are because I'm really tired. And if it's quiet at 10 or 11 p.m., sorry, Chris, sorry, Emily, I might just go to bed. But if there is party all around and I can't sleep anyway, then I might as well join at 1 a.m. the book cougars. But I have a video conference tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock because there is no carnival in Holland where I work. So anyway, back to the book. It's a coming-of-age story of sorts. We have Nina, who is 9 years old when the book opens. I should also say the author is Lippen Apache from Texas. And this is also about indigenous peoples and their culture and their belief system, if you want to call it that, but wrapped in the story of this girl coming of age. And it's told in alternate chapters because there's also a cottonmouth, Ollie. He lives in an alternate universe, I would say, as a non-indigenous person, but it's just not on Earth because the world of the animal people and the spirits has been separated from the world. That's all I'm going to say. There is some connection between the two people, and then stuff happens and they have to get together in order to solve stuff. And I thought it was just delightful. It was really, really delightful. I will say it is a bit slow. So the story that is on the blurb that they will get together and then, solve stuff, that is not going to happen until the last third of the book. I hate it when blurbs just give wrong impressions. So don't let you, if you want to pick up this book, don't let that influence your enjoyment of the story, because Nina is really wonderful. Ollie got on my nerves at some point, the cottonmouth, but then, it's just delightful. So I had a lot of fun, and Chris and Emily, if I don't make it tonight, it was a wonderful pick. Thank you very much. Then the next book is mostly I pick a book that I thought about the most. And again, if you're following along with my recent reads, you're probably not surprised. It is Beloved by Toni Morrison, a book that I read together with Heidi as a buddy read earlier in February, and it was published in 1987. It is the story of a woman who, we're talking a setting 1870s-ish, but the story also goes back when this main character, Sethi, when she was still a slave, and what happened to her children, especially one daughter, Beloved, and to her, and how the horrors that happened had to made her make impossible choices or impossible decisions, and how that influences her life even years and years later when she is a free woman, when slavery is over, at least on paper, and how she tries to come to terms with what she did. I did already a review of the book, so I'm not gonna tell you all the ins and outs. I thought about this mainly the way that Toni Morrison was able to make the experience of slavery, especially for a woman, and especially for a woman having children, very individual. So we are not talking, placeholders. This is an individual life. And still, it told you something about slavery as a whole. And not a lot of authors can do that in such a brilliant way, because it's really difficult. If you tackle something as huge as slavery, and you want to say something about that, but you are not writing nonfiction, but you are having one character or more than one character, because there's also male characters who suffer in this story, and you want to have an individual experience because it's an individual life, but you still want to paint the bigger picture. I think that's one of the most difficult things to do. Again, I will say, repeating myself from A Snake Falls to Earth, there were quite some things in the book that didn't work for me. I'm not into magical realism in this setting, the ghost thing and, the rebirthing or whatever of a character. It's just not working for me that well. And there were a couple of structural things, about the children that I thought that was weird. But the main theme, how Toni Morrison tackled the main theme and told a really, really horrible, harrowing story of an individual woman, I thought was just absolutely brilliant. And I will think about this book for a long time as a writer, because the way she, like I said, was able to do stuff that is really difficult, but also because the characters are so vivid and you will not forget those people. I can guarantee you. Then the last book in the tops is most of the time the best nonfiction I read, if I at least read enough nonfiction, to pick something. And in February, I read a couple of really, really good nonfiction books. also rereads. Um, but in the end, there was one book that stood out for me, which was a partial reread, and that is Susan Sontag's first essay collection, Against Interpretation, which was published in 1966, and the essays were written between roughly 1963 and 1965, 66, something like that. One of her famous early essays on camp is in there, and the title essay Against Interpretation, in which it's an essay collection mainly about art and cultural criticism. So if you're not into that, if that doesn't interest you, you will not like this. And to repeat myself for a third time, I will have to say there are also essays in there, reviews of books and mainly films. And the films are, of course, she watched those films in the early 1960s. So you might never have heard of the film, you might never have watched it, and it is, of course, not that interesting, to read a review of a film that is like, I don't know, 60, 70 years old, and you have never watched and you don't know what she's talking about. So take my "this is brilliant" with that grain of salt. And I haven't watched all those movies, don't get me wrong, but I just loved the way I can see her mind work in this book. I got more out of the more general essays, like Against Interpretation, like her take on camp culture. And a couple of other essays were more general, but I also really enjoyed the review articles or essays, even if I never heard of the movie, hadn't seen the movie or the book, because Susan Sontag for me has a way of writing about art that I think is absolutely fascinating and brilliant. So yeah, this was my pick for the best nonfiction book of February. So these were my tops. And now on to the flops. And I have only one. First of all, because I had a really, really good reading month, but also because I want to take a little bit of time to talk about that book. It was another Buddyread, this time with Sandy from Miss Reads a Lot, and we read The Red Queen by Margaret Drabble, published in 2004. And for both of us, it was one of a book off the list of the 1,001 books you have to read before you die. You probably know, if you follow Sandy, she combined a couple of books that offer these lists, and I made my own list because I want to read only female authors. But this was on both of our lists, so we thought we read it together. I thought this was really bad in a lot of ways, not writing-wise. Margaret Drabble is a British author. She is sisters with A.S. Byatt, and they both can really write well, and they can tell a story. So this is told in two parts. The story of a Korean princess called the Red Queen, even though she never became queen, in the 18th century. 16th century? Well, sorry about that. And the first part is the princess herself, dead long, 200 years dead, but telling her life story as a ghost, so to speak. I thought that was a bit gimmicky, this, trick to just have her tell the story as a dead woman, because it made it possible for the author to have the Red Queen or the princess reflect back not only on her whole life, but also reflect on things that of the present day. I thought that was a bold choice, certainly for a Western author, to have this princess, a Korean princess, tell her own story. And again, I'm not one of the people who would say you can't write about something that is, removed from you geographically or in time or in gender or in race. No, an author can write about anything. If it's good, it's good. If it's not good, it's not good. This is not good. But there is no prohibition, of course. I just want to make that clear. I thought that in the first part, The Voice of the Princess, I didn't think that the author reflected enough about whether what she is telling us is really what a Korean princess in the 18th century would have thought, or whether it's our Western projection of what a princess in the Korean in the 18th century would have thought. So I thought that was a bit of a problem. There is material about this particular princess because she wrote memoirs and they were published. And Sandy and I will probably read those memoirs together also as a buddy read. So there is material. The author didn't have to invent anything. Then we come to the second part where we have this researcher in the present day, Barbara Halliwell, who is flying to Korea to a medical conference to give a talk there. So she's not a historian. That's one of the misconceptions about the book, that she would, research the princess for her work. That's not true. She, by chance, we don't know how, gets the manuscript of the memoirs and then, flies to Korea to give her talk. She meets people there, and she has her medical conference stuff and gets involved a little bit in the life of the princess. That was just not working, I felt. It was a complete disconnect for the story. It was not what the book was supposed to do, I feel, that you give this second perspective from today. It was also too postmodern for me, for various reasons towards the end, which I'm not going to go into, but I don't like that postmodern gimmicky stuff. But what really irked me in the end was, in the second part, the princess, again as a ghost, sort of follows this American medical researcher in order to channel, her life so that it will remain known. And I don't know, maybe I was overreacting, but I really felt that was such a neo-colonial thing to do, that this Korean princess bloody needed an American woman of the 21st century in order to keep her alive. No, just no. I thought that was just a very, very, very bad idea. So I thought the book was just not good on various levels, but why it really irked me was mainly the last point. So I ranted on for 4 minutes. Good that I don't have another flop. Red Queen, my flop of the month. So, my tops and flops, only 4 books this time, 3 in the tops and 1 in the flops. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to your comments. And yes, I'm behind again with answering your comments on my videos. I'm very sorry about that. I hope to be able to catch up next week, but I'm still looking forward to comments. Please believe me. And I'll see you all soon in the next one.